everyone, welcome back. And today we are luckily joined by the man who makes his UFC debut on home soil, February 12th in Perth. None other than Shannon Ross. Shannon, how are things with you today, my man?
Yeah, really good, guys. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, looking absolutely pumped and excited to make this debut and get it all happening.
Well, look, we'll start off with that. I saw on your Instagram a few months ago, posting about the UFC coming back to the Gold Coast, which I'd be massively in favour for. I'll start the petition going. But more importantly, you said you were in the bleachers that night, the last time that the UFC came to the Gold Coast, and again I saw the clip on your Instagram of being at Marvel Stadium a few years ago.
Yep.
As you start the camp for your UFC debut in February, do you have any expectations, or is there an anticipation of what it's going to be like for you debuting here in Australia, or is that something that you sort of push to one side and more so focus on the training of it?
Yeah, just focus on the camp and focus on what I can control. Obviously, I always expect myself to perform and show up and obviously put on a show and hype the crowd up, sort of thing. Obviously, doing it in Perth and home soil, it's got that little bit more of a wow factor about it to sort of bring that to the game. Yeah.
So branching off that, you are booked to fight Kleydson Rodrigues on the UFC Perth card, which is a massive opportunity, not only due to the exposure that will be focused on that card, but also for the opportunity to, fight on home turf, so early on in your UFC career. Is there any additional pressure that, you might be feeling a little bit making your UFC debut on, what's shaping up to be one of the biggest cards of 2023?
No pressure, no added pressure from my end. Obviously, yes, super excited to be debuting on such a massive card, 284, and a home soil card, which is awesome. But yeah, no added pressure. Just the only pressure I put on myself is make sure I train and perform, and when I get there, I'm ready to go, and I'll go and put in 120% and put it all on the line like I always do. And yeah, that's how I like to fight anyway. So yeah.
Shannon, look, I know you've told the story a little bit, but for our listeners, I'd love if you could retell it. Obviously, the news, came out after your last fight, on the Contender Series that you did have a ruptured appendix, and would have had so during the fight itself, which is completely mind blowing to imagine anyone fighting the biggest fight of their life with such a serious thing you're going through. So can you talk to me, about this state of mind leading up to that fight, as I imagine you would have been in a considerable amount of pain. Because one thing is for sure, man, you've got a mental toughness and mental fortitude of someone I've yet to encounter.
Yeah, so obviously that camp we had a lot of stuff that I went through and a lot of hiccups and a lot of speed bumps in the road, and then obviously once we were in Vegas and I started feeling that stomach pain and sort of feeling what was going on, it was just, to me, I was just pushing it to the back. Like, this is just one more thing I've got to overcome. We're here in Vegas. Let's just get this fight done. And then we'll address it after and figure it all out. Obviously, not knowing how bad it was and what was actually going on, probably in hindsight could have checked it out a little bit earlier. But yeah, we cut weight, we got the fight done, and we went to hospital the next day. And yeah, they were absolutely astounded with the condition I was in with having a ruptured appendix. And yeah, the UFC doctor, he couldn't believe it. He was just saying, "You guys from down under, you're bred tough." Like, he's telling me you're bloody hard down there. And I was just like, yeah, let's just fix this up now, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Shannon, look, throughout the later portion of 2020 through to early 22, it was, a bit of a struggle for you to get a fight due to opponent withdrawals and event cancellations. And, considering that at that time it was kind of, the peak of COVID, especially here in Australia, did those cancellations, coupled with sort of, the state of unsurety at the time of, what could happen with MMA, did it have you second guessing your career, or, maybe the sort of prospect of dedicating yourself to a sport in such an uncertain time?
Yeah, 100%. I've told a few people this, that obviously from this just before 2020, 2019, I went down and had a meeting with Mick Maynard when they come out for the UFC, Rob Whittaker versus Israel, the first fight in Melbourne. I was obviously in the bleachers at that show, and that's why I put out that post. Like I said, my family and friends will sit in this section one day, and now we get to do it in UFC in Perth. But yeah, back to the question. I did go through that frustration of COVID and the the fight cancellations and the show cancellations. Then we fought in Abu Dhabi. It cost me over 20 grand to get home because of flight cancellations and stuff like that. Plus the quarantining once we got home was another $4,000 on top. And yeah, at the start of this year, I actually said to my wife, I said, look, I think I'm ready to hang it up because I can't get any fights. I can't get anything that makes sense. I'm at the top of the Australian circuit and I can't get anything happening here. And I just don't know how long I can push on investing so much time and effort with no goal in the end, on the end road. She sort of said to me, no, you're not allowed to retire yet. You have to have one more fight. We signed one more fight with Eternal. We got a title fight on there against Sean Etchell. Literally about a week later, the UFC called in March and said, look, the world's opening back up. We want you out here on the Contender Series in Vegas. And yeah, it was crazy because 1 minute you're thinking about sort of hanging it up and the next minute you've got what you've worked for your whole career.
100%. Sort of touching on that same subject as well, like you've obviously been competing now professionally, coming up to your 13th year and you know, obviously set to make your UFC debut, which is a story I personally love because, you know, where someone has a dream and doesn't stop till it's achieved, you know what I mean? You never quit, you never sort of stopped. I imagine there would have been a lot of times of doubt over the years, you know, during those periods where you'd see guys get signed, that maybe, and you know, maybe you weren't getting signed at that point. If there were times of doubt throughout that period, how did you overcome them and stay the course and keep going?
Yeah, 100% touching on that. Definitely as well. Like you'd see guys that get signed and you go, these guys they've taken these fights and they've padded their records and all that sort of jazz. And somehow they've got to the big show or they know someone on the inside. And for me, it was just even more determination to prove that I belonged there and that I could get there off my own back and off the way I fought and how I performed. And obviously, a lot of guys did get there before me, but they're also gone now and they didn't really perform there. So for me, knowing that I've done the hard work, it sort of cements that thing inside me that I know I'm ready now. I've done all the hard work. I didn't cheat to get there and I didn't get there early, maybe before I was ready. So that gives me confidence in, yeah, it come a little bit later, but it gives me confidence knowing I'm truly ready now.
For sure. So Shannon, look, the card you're fighting on is obviously stacked from top to bottom, and you know, if the MMA gods willing, if that card stays together, we truly have a main event fight as well between two of the best pound for pound fighters in the world today in 100%. Alex Volkanovski and Islam Makachev. So look, while both men present really unique challenges to each other, based off where we stand today, how do you see that fight playing out?
I really think a lot of people are going to be super shocked with this one. I think Alex has the skills and just the grit and the determination to get it done. Islam's talking all this short guy stuff, but if you ever wrestled a short guy, it's pretty hard to get under him. So I think obviously that is Islam's key to victory, or the way he's going to approach the fight. I think is obviously wrestle and control, but yeah, I would say have fun trying to get under Alex, and if he does get him down, have fun trying to keep him down. Yeah. I'm actually in Wingdang right now, training out a freestyle, and yeah, seeing that guy move and train and how smart he is, how cerebral he is it's another thing. Like, yeah, fighting is like, it's a smart man's game, fighting, especially MMA. There's so much stuff happening, and to see how smart and cerebral Alex is it's very cool and very refreshing to be around.
100%. Look, Shannon, a quick thing from me, I always sort of ask every single fighter this, and kind of my thing I like knowing is the origin story of the nickname. So Turkish Delight, where did that come from?
Yeah, funny one. This one, it's my first couple of fights. I never really had a fight name or anything. I just used to walk out by my name. My dad is Turkish, so there's the heritage thing there. But yeah, one of my coaches, Big Mike, one day before one fight, I seen him talking to the announcer, like pretty much 5 minutes after I spoke to him, and said, "I don't have a fight name." And then next minute, I'm walking out and they're calling my name and they're saying, Shannon, the Turkish Delight. And I'm looking around going, what the hell? And I look over and he's laughing, like having a good old time. So we sort of just ran with it from there. Like, it's funny, it's cool, it's got that little bit of a heritage sort of background story. And it's a little bit different. And you got all these guys, the axe murderer, the killer, the whatever, you know, like everyone's so serious and tied up in this hard man aspect of it. And I just thought, oh, this is cool. It's funny. It's a little bit different. We'll just roll with it. And then, yeah, it's sort of stuck ever since. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, because it's funny because I saw the Turkish Delight and I thought it's either the chocolate or you're Turkish. And I saw your last name is Ross and I'm Lebanese. So I didn't think, man, I thought maybe, you know, you weren't Turkish, but it all makes sense. That makes sense.
So my mum and dad never got married. So I always lived with my mum growing up through my whole childhood. And yeah, so I've always kept that name. My dad's last name's Adnan. So it's a very, very Turkish sort of that aspect name. But yeah, so that's where I am. That's how it come about.
Great
and
story.
Yeah, the Turkish Delight's not too bad, but we might change my fight name to the Marvelous Creation or something like that after I get a few wins.
Yeah,
exactly.
The Kinder Surprise. But,
there you go.
So look, Shannon, man, last question from us because we really appreciate your time. We know you got to get off to training. But as a flyweight, obviously a few years ago, you know, there was significant talk of, you know, completely scrapping the division in the UFC. And, you know, I, for one, am happy that, you know, that didn't happen as, you know, from Demetrius Johnson to Joe Benavidez to Cejudo to Moreno, the flyweight division has produced some of the best fighters and fights in the UFC, you know, and now we have a new wave of up-and-comers such as yourself.
Correct. Yep.
When that period of uncertainty was kind of going on, was it hard to stay motivated in continuing your career at flyweight, knowing that at the time its future was uncertain in the biggest promotion in the world?
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely talks with me and my team about maybe we just go back to bantamweight. I've fought there a lot. Had a fair bit of success there. Maybe I just move back there and grow into my body and focus on that instead of getting smaller and getting bigger and getting smaller and all the in-betweens. Like you said, the flyweight division, there is this new breed of talent and these guys that they have skills everywhere now, but they also have that knockout power pedigree that a lot of people they sort of expect, and you expect that in the heavyweights. That's why it's such a loved division, right? And a few years back, the flyweight sort of didn't have that excitement. Now you do have guys, Davidson Figueiredo, he's knocking guys out with one shot. There's Kai Kara France, he's obviously on the Perth card. He can do it too. So yeah, it's brought that excitement. The casual fans can tune in and they get that excitement, and like the dedicated fans, they really understand what's happening with flyweights because we're so well versed. We have to have skills in every single attribute of the fight game that where it goes, because we can't just rely on these one shot hitters.
For sure. Well, look, Shannon, man, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Hopefully next time you're back down the coast, we can all meet up for a chicken palmy and a chat and do this in person next time. And
yeah,
look, man,
definitely.
All the best in your next fight. We're going to be tuning in to see it, and we can't wait to talk to you again in future, man. Thank you again.
Awesome, guys. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Josh. Cheers heaps for having me. And 284, here we go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks very much, man.